Welcome to the Let's Play of Christopher Columbus is an Idiot. My name is Kurt Collada. I am the writer, director, designer, programmer, and graphics artist for this silly little game. This was sort of conceived several months after I published the Guide to Classic Graphic Adventures back at the end of 2011. I thought it'd be sort of neat to make my own graphic adventure, so I mapped something out that was sort of similar to Monkey Island. And I never quite finished it. I got all of Act 1 completed. There are supposed to be 4 acts, and a good chunk of Act 2 done, and little bits here and there of the rest of it. But due to assorted reasons I'll probably go over at some point in this commentary, I was never able to complete it. But I still thought it'd be a neat idea to sort of talk about, how it worked out, the things that worked well, the things that didn't, and discuss things about adventure game design and things like that. So anyway, you can still download the first act of the game for free at Hardcore Gaming 101. I'll probably put it on itch.io if I can figure it out. So enjoy, I guess. Here it is, the opening text scroll to Christopher Columbus is an Idiot. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Or did he? This common song, was it? Was it a poem? A rhyme, maybe? Well, whatever. It tells the story of events that actually happened. Probably. So the whole idea behind this text scroll was that it was supposed to be kind of weird and rambly, like the narrator didn't really understand about any of it, and sort of played with the idea that this whole story is basically like nonsense. Most of anything that I researched about this was stuff that I vaguely recalled from grade school education and sort of Wikipedia lookings over, so it's not really remotely historical in any way, but I think the game benefits because of that. And so here's the credits. There's me. And the game was also helped written by my brother Alan. He came up with a lot of additional scenarios, additional dialogue, a lot of different jokes here and there. And the music was by a generous reader named Edward LaBarbera. He had just downloaded the demos, like, hey, I can provide a couple music tracks. So he gave a couple of them totally for free, and that's what you'll hear in the game here. And some of it is pretty decent. I'm very thankful for him. So here the game is going to start now, yeah. So here's Christopher. He's first introduced tumbling through a broken window. This was sort of inspired by, the day that I conceived this game was I got a Mystery Science Theater 3000 DVD set. So the movie we were watching was Master Ninja, and one of the first things you see is the protagonist hurled through a broken window. So I thought that was a really good idea to introduce a character that was kind of a putz. So here you can sort of see the different things in the room. There's Humphrey the Rabbit here. And Humphrey is your best friend. He accompanies you through most of the game. He's an item that you can use for different stuff. He also acts as a hint system. His default name is Humphrey, but there's a whole bunch of different names you can give him, most of which are completely ridiculous. And he has like a little biography for each little name, so it encourages you to try them all. Captain Murphy was the name of my cat. He's also known as Fatal Fury Cat. He was he's still featured on the forum banner. Anyway, I picked Sex Rob's McGillicuddy for this particular interview, particular playthrough. And one of the names in there my brother had suggested was Benedict Cumberbatch, which at the time I thought was totally fictional. But as it turns out, it was a real person. I just wasn't familiar with Sherlock, and this is before Star Trek Into Darkness came out. So here, the main goal you have to is to escape this room. Like, you're trapped and you can't leave because of this angry mob that's outside. This was kind of a problem because I like the idea of having a danger that was outside of the view of the player. And, this is sort of make them feel threatening without actually being visible. The problem is trying to clue the player that you could interact with them. And because you can't see them, you just sort of have to know to talk to the windows, so you'll start a conversation out there. And they sort of explain to you that Columbus, he had sort of screwed up their meeting by wrecking their expensive boats, which I thought was kind of a lame reasoning for them to be mad at him, but I couldn't think of anything else. And here you can immediately just sort of be like, yeah, I'm totally going to give myself up. And so you stroll right out the door, and this is one of a handful of what I called fake death sequences. I really like playing Sierra games. I mean, they killed you a lot, but at the same time, some of the ridiculously goofy deaths you could get into, especially in Leadership Lair and Space Quest, like, they were kind of Easter eggs. They would give you reason to explore. So I want to implement something like that, but without any of the frustration that you would normally find in these sort of games. So even if you were able to kill yourself, the game would still continue. It wouldn't really penalize you. Like you would be. It was an incentive to explore and do all sorts of weird stuff. So here's Columbus just kind of looking around the room. His there's a family crest of a dove crapping on a snake for some reason, and here's a lot of the stuff you can look around. Almost everything he mentions here is about hiding pornography and burning pornography. And as you can see, one of the first items you can get is a bit of fetish pornography, and this made it really awkward to show off to family and coworkers, and they'd be like, "What's this obsession with porn?" So that was kind of a embarrassing way to start the game, but it also established Columbus as kind of a weirdo. And one of the first items you'll find in here, so you open up the globe. It's the only thing you can actually interact with, is the saucy savages. Exotic porn. This was sort of inspired by the I think some sort of screwdriver item, some sort of weird tool that you found in the Broken Sword games, and it's one of the first things you got. I think it might have had some use, but you show it to different points, different people in the game, and it really didn't do anything as far as I recall, but just made for some weird little dialogue. So it would end up being important later on, and it's a clue for something later on also. So anyway, now Columbus has to actually figure out how to do this. And this was, again, it was a really bad puzzle. Like, I think containing a person in a room right at the beginning of the game is kind of a bad idea, because they just want to explore. They don't want to necessarily solve anything, especially with a puzzle as abstract as this. It's an item combination puzzle. So you have to take the globe, fill it with that whiskey barrel, put it in the fireplace, and then throw the flaming globe out. And it will cause the crowd to go on fire, and then you're able to get out. And it's kind of a funny idea, especially because you can't see them on fire, but you can't see them on fire. But it's really funny just the way that they're describing the stuff in the cavalier way that he just, immolated all these people. They will show up later on, or they were to show up right at the ending, but again, you never actually see them. You just see the result of where they are. Anyway, here's the introduction of Amerigo Vespucci. He's supposed to be one of Columbus's best friends. He's the one that gives Columbus the idea to sail overseas, as we'll slowly get into. First, even though Amerigo Vespucci is Italian, he talks with an English accent for a reason I can't really remember. Yeah, so here's the part that he actually tells you about going overseas. And sort of establishes this vague sort of explore university where all these people had attended. Thought it'd maybe be a good idea if these were all like college buddies or something like that. So you can go through all the different dialogues here, and other than being British, the only thing that you really get about Amerigo is that he really likes prostitutes. That was his defining characteristic. And one thing here, which is obviously a spoiler for later on, but Amerigo Vespucci is one of the antagonists in the game. You won't see it until the second. I love his goofy walking animation. I didn't bother to animate it correctly. But you'll see him later on, where he sort of turns on you and becomes a bad guy. So this is when you're finally allowed to explore a little bit and sort of steal the underwear and the cape, or the red cape that's lying out there. And this is the town. You can't really do a whole lot here. The whole idea was that you were supposed to solve this first chain of puzzles before opening up to the greater world. It's sort of like the old RPG thing where, you need to do a bunch of stuff before, the bridge is out, but you need to do a whole bunch of stuff before anybody fixes it. This is a good joke I like because it was based off of Old Man Murray. He had the old crate to time function that would sort of judge how terrible it was based on how quickly you would come up with come across a crate. The game actually times you from when it starts to up until now, how long it's been till you come across that box. I guess it was 361 seconds there. I'm not entirely sure how accurate it is. I think the internal Adventure Game Studio timer loop pauses during certain actions like dialogue, so it might not be perfect, but it's good enough, I think. I also never programmed an error handler, so I'm sure if you just sat here and let it run for a couple days straight, it would crash. But anyway, this is when you talk to the stripper and you try to impress her with your brains. Of course, Christopher Columbus doesn't have them, so much of the stuff that you say is nonsense. So you get involved with her a little bit later and just sort of stroll around the club here. As Columbus marked, it's early in the day and it's not much here, which makes it seem really empty. It makes a little bit more sense later on when it's populated through our characters. So the only other screen that we can get to is the entrance to the castle. And here you could talk to Rodrigo, who is the castle guard. This whole game, since it was sort of conceptualized around 2011, Rodrigo is sort of based off a lot of people that I know and still do know that went to college. They're extremely smart. They study their asses off, but they're stuck in miserable minimum wage jobs because the job market just wasn't there for them. This was around the time of Occupy Wall Street too, so that sort of informed this sort of character that was really, really bitter about this. Now Rodrigo's sort of talking about and establishing that Christopher Columbus and the Queen have a background together, which is sort of hinted at, but yeah, it's largely left to the player to sort of piece things together, and it's just goofy gibbering. And here's where he starts to get all bitter. One of the reasons Rodrigo becomes a major part in the adventure, becomes Columbus's traveling partner. I like the idea of having a straight character next to Columbus's goofiness. The main problem is that I tend not to like movies when you have a goofy character and a straight character, and the straight character spends all of his time being really annoyed by the goofy character. Like the movie What About Bob with Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. Like, Bill Murray is just this hilarious weirdo, or at least he was hilarious last time I watched the movie. And Richard Dreyfuss was a psychologist that could barely stand him. And it's just really, really irritating to see this funny character just drive this other person mad. That's sort of a problem with the Mr. Bean movies too. So I wanted to have Rodrigo be a character that was kind of slightly annoyed by Christopher Columbus's idiocy, but at the same time was also amused by him. And that's kind of the way that he helps him out, and he just kind of thinks he's this goofy, weird little guy. And this is also where they bring up Archibald Horn, billionaire idiot. This is pretty obviously based off Donald Trump, which is all more timely, talking in the American election season here now in 2015. Wealth is wasted on the rich. I don't know if that's a well-known saying, but it seemed amusing. Anyway, the impetus here is you need to get through this door, and Rodrigo won't let you do that because he's a guard. Yeah, and here he goes more on ramblings about his university days. And this is what gives you a clue to do something about the stripper in the library. As of course anybody that knows Spanish, abuelita is a terrible name for a stripper because it needs grandma, or means grandma, and they misspelled abuelita apparently. So it sort of gives you a clue that you need to do something with her. Obviously, the math scholars in this world are supposed to be the frat boy financial guys. Again, all inspired by Occupy Wall Street. So here you can try to give the panties, but obviously Rodrigo doesn't buy it. And it's supposed to hint you like, oh, I stole these from the girl you like. And they, well, no, I'm smarter than that. They obviously aren't supposed to be hers. But anyway, at this point, the only thing you need to do is backtrack to Columbus's bedroom. You can start to look at the stuff in his library, and then, yeah, there's a maths book using the proper British way of saying maths. Conceptuals and theories regarding precalculus applications and forms. Sounds awful. Complex arithmetic formulas and their applications to philosophy. Why do I even go in this garbage? Sine and cosine is applied to the trigonometric study of the female vagina. I don't know how I came up with those. How to bullshit women using the names of math theorems. I do like how it's very straightforward about what you're supposed to do. And licorice Wallace theory is a real thing. Again, most of this was sort of figured out just by looking at Wikipedia. I have no idea what any of this stuff means. You can sort of give it to her, and it obviously makes it clear that it's not hers. But now you can talk to her. What's your favorite mathematical theorem? The proper one pops up, so all I have to do is remember what it was. Licorice Wallace says, "Oh, it's been my favorite." Brockweiser Chowla, also real. So at this point, she takes you back to the champagne room. Very slowly walk past the bar. Through the happy face with the smiling devil horns. Except, the gimmick is it's a library. You can briefly chat with her, but there's not much to do here. This is sort of taking the sexy librarian stereotype to its logical conclusion. And obviously Columbus is kind of irritated by all this, because he's not much for the brains. So the only item you need to get here is the perfume, which is obviously used a little bit later on. You can look around here, the little bit of art on the wall. I love how angry he is at the owl. Education is anathema to eroticism. I like that phrase just because such an idiot such as Columbus is using such big words. Not really sure if he understands what they mean. So this is the opening to Galileo's bedroom. You're not supposed to go here till later in this act. But this is sort of a split screen joke in that the player can see what's on the left side of the screen, but Columbus can't because there's a wall blocking it. There's a sort of a similar gag in Leisure Suit Larry 6, where you're on one side of a shower room, and you can see the other side, but Larry can't. Anyway, this is where you first use the rabbit to figure out a way through, and this is where it sort of gives off the hint system. He sort of walks you through about how you're supposed to help out Rodrigo. The hint system ended up being kind of difficult to program, especially because the next part of this act is non-linear, and getting everything to trigger right was a little difficult, so it might be all glitchy. Anyway, this is where you send him through the hole to grab whatever it is on your side, which you know is a telescope. And then he gets snatched away by the rabbit-snatching falcon. I'm sure that sound effect is a stock sound effect. I think you can hear it a lot in... I heard it in Wet Hot American Summer, which uses a stock sound effects for similar comedic value. Anyway, at this point in the game, the rabbit is out of your inventory, and you can't even look at him for hints. I sort of wanted to create a bond between Columbus and the rabbit, as goofy as that is, and being able to remove your crutch I thought was an interesting way to actually make the player miss the rabbit. One of the reasons that I also wanted, I thought about letting the player type in the name for the rabbit, but I wanted to emphasize the fact that the rabbit is Columbus's, not the player's. So it would only be a silly name that he would make up. So at this point you use the perfume on the underwear and you give it to Rodrigo here. And at this point the emulator kind of sped up. And it really, not the emulator, the program kind of sped up and I thought it was a glitch. So I kind of skipped through this while I reloaded my save game. I'll get back to what is supposed to be very shortly. Okay, and as I kind of skipped through the dialogue, but you need to create a little diversion here, which sort of gives Rodrigo plausible deniability, that he'll kind of look the other way and let you in. So I didn't try it earlier. Obviously you're supposed to do something with that red cloth that causes the bull to go mad, except it won't work. Okay, this is Cranky Old Hands. Cranky Old Hands, all he does is curse at you and is really cranky. He only has 4 lines of dialogue, I believe, all in capital letters. He's sort of like Father Jack, I think, from the Father Ted show. He's just kind of drunk and angry. He exists only as a roadblock to block that paint splotch right over at the side of the screen, which is used for a puzzle later on. Again, it's sort of a way to gate players away from doing certain things until they need to be able to do them. Anyway, you use the red thing on the bull as it turns out he's nearsighted. And obviously, the way to fix that is to use a little bit of lateral thinking and use the telescope that you found in Galileo's laboratory. That way he'll be able to see it. Again, it's one of those adventure game puzzles that probably doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense. But that's the way it works. And again, since I sped up, the animation looked a little silly there, but I think that particular line of dialogue is a glitch. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, this is where you meet the Queen of Spain, and she's established that the Queen is kind of an idiot, and this is where you finally get to talk to her and discover that firsthand. And obviously when you try to use the hand on her, he's like, well, they may have dated or fooled around, and it's really weird and uncomfortable. Of course, the running gag is that she can't get Christopher's name correct, and the names that she calls him get successfully more bizarre as it goes along. This is where you come in and just start insulting her. As an aside, the music here was sort of inspired by the opening theme to Blackadder, which you could sort of get by that guitar riff before it loops. This is where Columbus talks about the beaver situation in Santiago, which I think was referenced to a little bit before. You'll get to this in the second part of the act, but it just sort of sets out how incompetent the Queen is because she doesn't know anything about it. This also introduces the counselor, who acts as her assistant and just kind of talks from off screen. There's a bunch of silly little gags with him too as this goes on. Incidentally, it sets up the whole beaver situation as something being really dire, but when you get there, the beavers are entirely harmless. I claim this the land of Spain in the name of Columbus. You can't do that. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. Counselor, can you do that? And at this point, the counselor asks, is his hat larger than yours? There's supposed to be a running gag that would go on that whoever ruled the country of Spain had the largest hat. And there'd be a gag later on where you need to create this is like right at the end of the game, and try to get a gigantic hat on yourself, and you would win. As you can see, there's a recurring obsession with ham, just because it's a funny word, and also because Spain really loves pork. There's actually a place called the Museum of Ham. It's a butchery that is found in Madrid and a bunch of other places. And this is where you actually talk to the Queen about what you want to do. It doesn't matter what you say; it'll still lead you down the same tree. Of course, the joke about that is that his argument isn't compelling at all. And this sort of sets out the what you're going to be doing for the next half of the first act, is to find the 3 boats. And this is a lot like the 3 puzzle structure that was used in the Secret of Monkey Island. As you can see, structurally, this game borrows a lot from that. I think it's the most classic kind of game design structure, which also means I sort of have something to use as a template instead of thinking it up myself. But a lot of other adventure games did this, so I guess it's not that bad. I like how you can accuse the counselor guy of being evil based on, like, literally nothing. I don't think he was ever supposed to be evil, even at the end of the game. I'd have to check the design document. I think he does sort of make a more compelling case here that it's a cliche than his argument to try to go overseas. I like the banter between Columbus and the counselor here. It gives him some way to interact, because otherwise you can't really talk to him. You kind of walk over there. Oh yeah, there's no more dialogue. At this point, the rabbit comes back. Every time you use him for something, he'll always pop into your inventory, pop up in your inventory a little bit later on, so at least you're never without him for too long. And here you'll notice that cranky old Hans is gone, because he was basically just a roadblock for that block. And you can even ask Rodrigo about where cranky old Hans went. He's just talking about the stuff with the bull. Say, where'd cranky old Hans go? Oh, he died of starvation. I love the way that they just he just kind of tosses off, a character that died all of a sudden. I mean, he's the character that's basically created to be a roadblock for the player, and he's just casually killed off screen. It's kind of cruel, but kind of funny. And this is what you need to do. You need to paint the rabbit black, which is used for a puzzle later on. And here we can talk to him, and it sort of breaks down the threads for the different hint systems. Anyway, we're going to take a break for now, and then we'll see you for the part 2 of Act 1.